Hi, I'm Kevin Coop, and this is FaceTime with the Content Guy. So, tonight will actually be Jay Leno's final night as host of The Tonight Show. Unless, of course, he figures out a way to do to Jimmy Fallon what he did to Conan O'Brien. We'll wait and see. You know, the first time I think Fallon's ratings begin to flag a little bit, we're going to see all sorts of intrigue out there as Leno says, well, I'm happy to come back and save the ship. Now, listen, some of that is colored by the fact that I've never been a Leno fan. I just find his jokes kind of predictable and tiresome. I don't love the delivery. I'm just not a Leno fan. I would really rather watch and listen to Jon Stewart any old day. And besides, Leno's a lousy interviewer. Jon Stewart is much better, especially if he's got a subject that he's interested in. But I am sort of interested in Leno's retirement, and that's because the New York Times did a piece the other day that sort of used his retirement as sort of an example, a metaphor for what's happening in terms of baby boomers in general, in terms of retirement. Now, Leno is 63, and the New York Times wrote that although the average age at which current United States retirees say they stop working at 61, up from 59 in 2003 and 57 in 1993, a January Gallup poll of 1,929 members of that generation found that 49%, didn't expect to retire until 66 or older. Now, one respondent in 10 expected never to clock out for good, assuming, of course, that they had a choice. Now, money is clearly an issue for a lot of people. The Times also writes that according to the Gallup poll, those who say they have, quote, enough money to do everything that they want to do predict that they'll retire at around 66. Those who do not have sufficient funds say 73 is a much more likely target. Now, I understand that for some people, the idea of having to work longer, more weeks, more years, whatever it happens to be, that is their definition of hell on earth. And I get that some jobs are like that, sometimes because they're just so incredibly strenuous, and sometimes just because they're not real pleasant. But in a lot of ways, this plays into another concern of mine, the whole idea that people in a lot of jobs are treated as if they are costs, not as if they're assets. And I'm absolutely convinced that people would be a lot happier in their work if companies would treat people as if they're assets, as if they mean something to the company, as opposed to just a bottom line cost that, well, if we can eliminate it, we will. People feel appreciated. I'm talking financial. I'm also talking, sort of spiritual, psychic appreciation. I think people would be willing to work a lot longer because they'd be getting a lot more satisfaction out of it. Now, listen, I'm lucky. I have a job that I love. My boss can be a little bit of a pain in the neck, but hey, listen, most of the time, I absolutely love my job. I'm luckier than most people. But I still think as a culture, we really have to sort of redefine and rethink our approach to work. I think this notion of work has to be something to be avoided or to be gotten out of or to retire from as soon as possible. I just don't think that's necessarily very good for a culture. Now, I'm not saying that everybody should do the same thing. I think it's great. I think it's fabulous when people are able to do different things, when they leave one job or one profession to go do something else. Mrs. Content Guy is a perfect example of this. She spent a long time. When we first met, she was a real hotshot broker banker type, and she did that for a long time, and then she took 10 years off to raise the kids, and then she decided to go back and get her master's in education, and now she's a third grade teacher. She's much better educated than I am. And, but that's great, and she keeps finding fulfillment in new things, and I suspect, when she decides to leave teaching, probably around the time that we move out west, she'll find something else to do, simply because she'll want to be fulfilled, she'll want to be challenged, she'll want to be engaged. And to me, a lot of it is the responsibility of the employer to make sure that people feel engaged, they feel connected to the job and to the overall mission. I love this story, and it may be apocryphal, about how once President Kennedy was touring Cape Canaveral back in the early 60s, and he was talking to a janitor, and the janitor said to him, "I'm helping to put a man on the moon." That's the way we should all feel about our jobs. And listen, you can't do it alone, right? People in the workforce have to feel something about this. But in a lot of ways, it's the employer's responsibility. It can't be like it is in Bridge to the River Kwai when the camp commandant says to the prisoners, you must be happy in your work. Well, he doesn't really mean it. He doesn't really care. He just wants the damn bridge built. That's a problem. You know, as we get older, sure, we have to make adjustments, but that doesn't mean that we can't be productive in a lot of different kinds of ways. Because my dad is 87 years old, and he's a retired elementary school principal and teacher. And I've always maintained that he only began to age when he retired. Until he retired, he would spend lunchtimes out on the playground shooting baskets with the kids, playing softball, the whole 9 yards. You know, when he stopped doing that, when he stopped being engaged, when he stopped being around young people, that's, I think, when he started to age. And I suspect if you hooked him up to a lie detector, he probably would agree with me. You know, I may not be a Leno fan, but I sort of respect the fact that he does have a workmanlike, commitment to the idea that, this is important. I do this every day. I'm committed to it. I really admire the fact that, tonight may be his last night on the Tonight Show. But, tomorrow he's got a gig in Florida because he wants to work. Making people laugh, going in front of audiences, it was what he does. Now listen, does he have a great gig? Sure. He's probably going to go to Florida on a private plane, and he's going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars for standing up in front of people and telling jokes. I get that. But hey, listen, he believes in the work, man. That's what he does. And I really admire that. This whole, as you get old and you sort of fade away. I'm not a big fan of that. I have to say, I've always admired, and I've quoted it here often, my favorite poem from Dylan Thomas, where he says, "Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave, and at close of day, rage, rage against the dying of the light." That's what I think we have to do. Rage against the dying of the light. Anyway, that's what is on my mind this Thursday morning, and as always, I want to hear what's on your mind.